Time to be 1 o'clock. I call the meeting to order. Please stand. Rise. Join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now I'll read the warning for this meeting. There will be a meeting of the National Fish and Game Commission on Tuesday, June 18th, 2024 at 1 p.m. at the National Fish and Game Department, 11 Hazen Drive, Concord, New Hampshire, 03301. The public is entitled to attend all commission meetings and when recognized by the chairman, the public may speak on any item on the agenda. The chairman reserves the right to limit public comments to the extent necessarily for the orderly conduct of the meeting. We'll move on to action items. First action item, approval of the May 20th. The May 20th, minutes 16.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, yeah. Typo, sorry.
It was the 20th or the 16th?
It was the 20th.
Okay. Approval of the May 20th, 2024 commission meeting. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So make a motion. Second.
Then moved and seconded to approve the May 20th, 2024 commission meetings. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And approved.
I'm going to abstain. I was absent. Abstain because I was absent.
Okay, number 2, the consent agenda. The following items have been grouped together and noticed as consent agenda items to expedite action on routine matters, which may not require public discussion. Commission members may remove certain items if further public input or discussion is deemed necessary. 2A, approval to accept the donation of a hand-forged double long spring bear trap made to the Trapper Education Program from Dr. J.S. Sidwell of Boxborough, Massachusetts, in memory of Harry D. Thompson, Hall of Fame trapper, and his wife, Dr. Doris Thompson, to be displayed at the Trapper Cabin at the Owlbrook Hunter Education Center in Holderness, New Hampshire. Excuse me. 2B, the approval to accept a donation of $25 from Marianne DeVue, East Hampstead, New Hampshire, in memory of Donald Martin of Danville, New Hampshire, for deposit into the small gifts and donations account. 2C, approval to accept a donation of $1,200 from Sally Merrill to be deposited into the search and rescue account and utilized by the Law Enforcement Division to purchase any outer ballistic plate tactical vest carrier. Sally Merrill is the widow of Don Merrill, who was a sergeant conservation officer with Law Enforcement Division for years. I would entertain a motion to accept 2A through 2C.
Make a motion to accept items 2A through 2C.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Stand approved. Move on to the informational item, financial statement. Everybody got a copy from Kathy on the financial statement? And Kathy's here. Kathy,
Here, if there's any questions.
I have one, Kathy.
Yes, sir.
Under the unrestricted revenue on page 3, the license agent late fines and penalties,
Oh, yeah.
323.08% above budget.
Mm-hmm.
Our license agents, that bad out there?
We have a few very large license agents. I will not name them, but they are, they do a tremendous volume here in the state of New Hampshire. And when they are late, they are fined like any other license agent. We also had an OHRV agent that was fined this winter, and it was a very large fine. So that's why those fines are so high this year.
Pretty good, right up to that, yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other commissioner got a question or Kathy? Thank you. Okay, number 2, update on the potential changes to the habitat fee. Dan and Jim.
We have to change the input thing.
That's the 7.
It's fine, but maybe the TV wasn't on. There we go. Very good. Good afternoon, Commissioners, Director Mason. Here this afternoon to give you some information on the wildlife habitat license and to seek your support for a potential inflation adjustment to this fee to help us continue the work that we do in conserving lands and habitats for wildlife. And this is an appropriate time to do this. It's the 25th anniversary of the Wildlife Habitat Program and the fee. And the fee is the cornerstone of the funding for the Wildlife Habitat Program and all the work that we do. If we didn't have that, we would not be as successful as we have been in conserving lands and managing those lands for wildlife and our constituents. That fee was instituted in 1999. It was $250 then, it's $250 today. RSA 214 outlines what we're allowed to do with those fees. We can develop, manage, preserve, conserve, restore, and maintain wildlife habitat on both public and private lands, exactly what we do. And we can acquire access to lands, conservation easements, and lands in fee to add to our system of wildlife management areas, over 62,000 acres currently. And we can provide information to the public on the location of those properties. This is the original habitat stamp from 1999, and so it was just like a duck stamp back in the day, but now it's a check off on the license. The annual income from that fee is $120,000 to $140,000, and we're able to use that to leverage approximately 3 times the federal funds to do the work that we do. But of course, what we do costs a lot of money. Buying land costs a lot of money. Managing the habitats on those lands costs a lot of money. Marking boundaries, fixing roads, bridges, gates, signs, all cost a lot of money. Here's an example. This is the match that was required for the land conservation projects that we did just over the course of this year. 8 projects, over 2,700 acres conserved. Some added to our system of easement lands, others added to our system of wildlife management areas. We needed to acquire or come up with $1.25 million in match, just in match. That is less than 10% of the annual revenue from the habitat stamp. Where that match comes from currently is from banked match, the cash value of donated lands. We've been using that technique for the last 5 years. We're going to be running out of those opportunities in the next couple of years because donated lands are few and far between. We get bargain sales occasionally from landowners, but you can't bank on that every time. And we get partner fundraising, and we can't bank on that every time. They're not always going to be successful in fundraising. So having another source or additional sources of funds for match for land conservation would be a benefit to our mission. Habitat and infrastructure management of our lands costs a lot. This is what we've expended this past fiscal year, over $760,000. That's a small grants program. That's the excavator that you guys approved a couple of months ago. Cost of one of our staff members, the infrastructure work that we do. There's a lot of things that go into that. But this is the income that covers that expense. Federal funds, Pittman-Robertson funds, cover most of that expense line. There's an endowment that was set up for the Connecticut Lakes Natural Area, the 25,000 acres that was conserved back in 2004 that we own. Our partners, Trust for Public Lands, Forest Society, and TNC, put together some funds to set up an endowment. And some of the funds were eligible expenses for that endowment, only $14,000. The rest comes from the habitat account, over $212,000. And clearly, with the revenues that we've been getting versus the expenses for this year, revenue's not keeping up with the expenses.
Now, we had a little bit of a surplus because of the conservative spending that we've been doing out of that debt account over many, many, many years, which has led to a backlog in stewardship that was put aside and not done. We have a lot of stewardship on our lands that needs to be done. Woods roads that have eroded, bridges that are no longer safe to travel across. There's a backlog of this stuff that we need to address. When you buy land, you have a responsibility to manage it. And we need to do a better job. We need more money to do it. So here's our current WMA infrastructure inventory. We have 94 parking areas. We have 131 gates. We have 149 signs. We have over, 110 miles of access roads and over 175 stream crossings. All of those require maintenance, and you need money to maintain them. And of course, this inventory keeps on growing with every piece of land that we purchase. This is one example of Kimball Hill Wildlife Management Area in Groton, 2,900 acres. This is not a stream. These are woods roads that were eroded away from 2 federal disaster rain events in 2017 and 2019. It cost us over $80,000 to fix these roads. We got FEMA grants to do that, but we can't count on FEMA every time we have issues. If you've been keeping up with the press releases, you'll know that the bridge crossing East Inlet Brook and the culvert to Scott Bog are out because of erosion issues that have undermined the bridge abutments at East Inlet and have undermined the culvert at Scott Bog. Depending on what we hear from the DES Wetlands Bureau, it could cost us anywhere from $50,000 to repair it in place to $250,000 if we need to put a longer bridge in. Basically replacing this bridge with a longer bridge. This is the Scott Bog culvert. This is a 6-foot culvert allowing or preventing flow of a 40-foot wide stream. So very much undersized. The culvert is old, the bottom has rusted out, probably shifted down, which allowed water to flow between the culvert and the road, leading to those, to that, what do you call that? Sinkhole. Also, it doesn't have any headers on it. So usually on the upstream portion of the culvert, you put some boulders or rocks to absorb or deflect that water during high water events. This did not have a header put in when it was installed, and so it's starting to erode away where the culvert meets the road. So this needs to be replaced with a 40-foot bridge, and that's quite a bit of money. And of course, the habitat work that we do, brontosaurus work to maintain young forests and patches of alder, cost $100,000 to $1,200 an acre. It's expensive stuff to do the work that we do. Here's our federal apportionment from when the Pittman-Robertson program began in the late 1930s to today. You can see there's a significant increase in the apportionments in the last 15 years. Here's a closer look at that 15-year mark, our time period. In 2009, we got an apportionment of $2 million. In 2024, a little bit less than $6 million. With that significant increase comes a significant increase in our concern of reverting some of these dollars because we can't spend them, because we don't have enough match. One of the biggest limiting factors to spending these dollars. So having additional match would help us or help deter at least reverting some of these funds. We haven't reverted yet to date, but we've been concerned the last couple of years. So what we're looking to do is to do an inflation adjustment. So to have the same buying power in 1999, that $2.50 today has to be $4.78, and we're proposing to round it up to $5. That would give us a little bit more buying power than what we had in 1999. That is equal to the cost of one turkey shotgun shell. One shell. That is less than the cost of 1 gallon of gas to get to your favorite hunting grounds. And if we can conserve and manage more habitats near you, maybe you can save a little bit of gas money. That is the cost, less than one cost of 1 medium iced coffee. Who here would be willing to defer buying 1 cup of coffee over the course of 1 year?
Let's not Colonel Bliss.
Kathy won't do that.
That's a Friday question. That's a Friday
Friday question, Jim.
That's a 7-day a week.
Come on, guys, help me out.
I'll go with the whoopie pie.
Oh yeah, whoopie pie, the New England classic. Next time you go to a convenience store and think about buying a whoopie pie or a bag of chips, think about it. Is that really what I need to spend that money on? Maybe it's better giving it to Jim and his team.
That price, has it been continued lately?
Yeah, I did. I will have recently. So you all know we've been doing a lot of more communications about the program and what we do and how we're funded. And last year we did a survey to see if that's worked. It was actually, we wanted to do a sort of a baseline study, so in 3 or 4 years we could look at it again to see if we made any improvement in understanding of what we do. But what we found in this baseline survey was rather interesting. We had 573 respondents, 315 hunters and trappers. Of those 573 respondents, people seemed to know what we did and who we were. And they seemed to be willing to support an increase in the habitat fee. So just the hunters and trappers now, because those are the ones that contribute to this fee. So you can see the percentage that we're willing to contribute to 50 versus 5 versus 10, and even greater than 10. So the take-home message is 65% support $5 or more for the fee. So we have constituent support for this inflation adjustment. And the authorities to do this rest in RSA 214.8, where the executive director shall set fees for the various licenses. RSA 214.9 lay out those licenses, including the wildlife habitat license. 260 sets the powers of the executive director, allows him to increase the fees after consultation with the commission. And you can do that through administrative rule, and the administrative rule authorities are RSA 541A. So we can change this through the regular administrative rules, similar to how we adjust other license fees. So the bottom line is, rather than 120 to 140,000, with this adjustment, we could get 240 to 280,000, which would leverage 720 to 840,000, helping to or reduce the likelihood of reverting federal funds, giving us plus or minus $1 million to continue to conserve and manage lands here in New Hampshire. And the last thing I'll leave you with is this.
We'd like to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for contributing to the health and vitality of the New Hampshire wildlife.
Every year you purchase a hunting or trapping license, you contribute $2.50 to New Hampshire Fish and Game's Wildlife Habitat Program.
Since 1999, the Wildlife Habitat Program has used these funds to conserve and improve habitats for the state's wildlife on both public and privately owned lands.
We also assure you'll always have access to these lands. You always have somewhere to practice your favorite outdoor pursuits. Once again, thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions of Jim?
Jim and I have talked, so you know that I got like 30 rolling in my head already. But with respect to new acquisitions, all right, and the process of new acquisitions, whether they be gifted, somebody gives you something freely, when you do an evaluation of a potential new property, do you do an in-depth assessment of any issues that might come with it? A large, undersized 5-foot culvert that really needs a bridge, or you know, that sort of thing. Can you just quickly, Jim, tell us what your process is in doing an evaluation?
Yeah, we go do a site visit. We do a GIS analysis to look at the habitat values and any potential stewardship issues. Those are sort of the basic categories, right? Habitat values, stewardship issues. We look at both of those things. We look at what the Wildlife Action Plan says. We look at the aerial photos to look at what sort of habitat diversity there is. We look to see how many neighbors there are and how many potential encroachment, potential options there are. And then on site, we're looking at, party spots, illegal ATV use, road trails, undersized culverts, like the one we saw in Marlow.
Yes.
And the one in Marlow that we're talking about, 1,300 acres that we're pursuing, we have very few lands in the southwestern part of the state. This is an opportunity to really increase our land ownership in that part of the state, but it has a severely undersized double box culvert. And that would need to be replaced by a bridge, but it's too good an opportunity to pass up 1,300 acres. Other than a culvert and a beaver flooding issue, it has no other stewardship issues, really. Well, we got work with FROCA expeditions on some stuff, but it's a really good opportunity. And so that's just too good of an opportunity. We're gonna take on that stewardship challenge because of the habitat values of that property.
Commissioner Hart?
I think it was a good presentation, outlining how you use the money, why you're recommending the increase in, in the last year or so, we probably talked about increasing fees in one way, shape, or another, and there's kind of been a undertone of resistance to increase fees, if I put it that way. So this by itself, I could say, oh, that makes good sense, but we're not looking at increasing fees anywhere else. So are we looking at that in context of everything? Because if we look at this as just one data point and say, oh, $2.50, 1 cup of coffee, okay, yes. But then tomorrow somebody comes and says, let's increase fees over here. We'll be like, oh no, because we've already increased over here, we can't do that. So are we looking at it that if we're gonna increase fees, should we do $1 here, $1 there, $1 there, and then we are asking for a cup of coffee to spread that across multiple programs from our user groups? It just seems like we're looking at this kind of a little bit.
So the two fees associated with a hunting and fishing license is the wildlife habitat program and the fisheries habitat program, by the right name. There is a difference. One, the wildlife habitat program, that law was set up where I have the authority to go through rulemaking to change that. The other one, we have to go to the legislature and ask. So that is on the list and it will be presented, but not now, be, as part of your legislative package going forward. So yeah, you may be hit for 2 cups of coffee.
And I would like to think about 2 cups of coffee collectively versus separately, so that we understand the overall impact that we're asking.
The third one that will probably be coming up will be your boat access fee, but that is not associated with a license. That is associated with registering a boat.
Any other questions of Jim?
So when you think about all the funds you expend in a given year, what percentage is spent on property that is owned by a private landowner? And what percentage is spent on property owned by the agency?
Private landowner versus agency, the vast majority is on lands owned by the agency. We do about $40,000 to $60,000 a year in private lands.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
There is a little bit more money that's spent on private landowners through our private landowner outreach program, which is not part of this program.
We have a small grants program, and it's actually been a challenge to expend the $40,000 to $60,000 in private lands. Some of it perhaps because of the restriction that we require that the land be open to hunting for 5 years. But I've certainly done plenty of advertising about the program.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, no, it's not a question. I was wondering if I can make a motion to support the executive director increasing the fee. I'll second.
Everybody's heard the motion? Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Committee, Commissioner Price.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did not meet this morning due to lack of action items. Marty did pass out the updated rules and legislative schedule. I do plan to call a meeting in July. Based on previous discussions, we're going to get started on some priority items for the 2025 legislative session. That's it.
Governance Committee, Commissioner Caven.
We did not meet.
Okay. Strategic and Sustainability and Strategic Planning.
All right, thank you. So I'm passing out a document that I'm going to refer to for our report. So since our last meeting, the committee has met, and what we are bringing before you today is the work that we've done over the last 3 months of meetings. If you recall, during the winter, you all adopted a series of strategic plan goals, and the committee explained to you at that time that our next step in the process was to develop actual action items that the agency would undertake over the next 5 years, which is the length of the plan, that if successful would result in our being closer to achieving the goals that you all adopted, right? So think about strategic planning as being partly goal setting, partly articulating action items, and then most strategic plans include some sort of measurement process so you know whether or not you're achieving the goals that you've adopted. And what we bring before you today, just for your consideration and review, are those action items, the things that the committee thinks the department should be doing over the next 5 years to get us closer to achieving those goals that we agreed to back in the winter. So what we're proposing is that we follow the same process we followed with the goals, which is that members of the committee will reach out to each of you as commissioners and each of the division chiefs and seek feedback on these action items. And then we'll review them, amend them, update them, take back that feedback. And then just like we did in the winter with the goals, we'll bring back to you at our July meeting an actual proposal for what the document calls success strategies, right? But think of them as action items, right? These are the things that we think should be done. So we're not asking for any action from the commission this month, but we wanted to get it out to you and just put you on notice that the members of the committee will be reaching out again to ask for feedback and input. And the way for you to read it, if you're not familiar with track changes, is the black text are the goals. Those are the ones that we adopted as a commission in January. The red underlined text is the new language. Those are your action items. So those are the proposals, so to speak. Those have not been approved by the commission.
Anyone have any questions of Commissioner Hodgson?
I was just commenting to Commissioner DeRosa that you guys did a lot of work between when we voted on the higher items to this, and I really appreciate all this time. I understand you have 4 meetings to get, so it's a lot of work.
Thank you.
We're going to have this finalized by the next meeting.
Yep, bring it back. That's our report.
Thank you. Resources and Infrastructure, Commissioner Green.
We have not met.
Public Engagement and Education, Commissioner DeRosa.
We have not met, but we are going to schedule a meeting for July to decide on our awards information. So hopefully present that to Commission in July. Vote on this.
Seacoast Committee report, Commissioner Catone.
Okay, the New England Fishery Management Council did a science survey assessing cod stocks within the Gulf of Maine and Georges Bank. Currently, there are two designations of cod stocks, Georges Bank and the Gulf of Maine. The scientific data now indicates there should be 4 distinct biological stocks. You have the eastern Gulf of Maine stock, the western Gulf of Maine cod stock, Georges Bank, and the southern New England cod stock. The implications for New Hampshire would be that each biological stock assessment unit may have its own separate allocation for quotas. And this could affect recreational as well as commercial cod fishing within the western Gulf of Maine stock, which is exploited by New Hampshire residents recreationally fishing as well as the commercial fishing industry. So that's something that's going to be evaluated, and within the future, determinations will be made as to allocations for each of the 4 designated areas. Secondly, I attended a meeting of the put on by New Hampshire State Parks Department for the Hampton Beach accessibility study. And there was an excellent presentation put on by Fish and Game employee Brendan Clifford, updating everybody on the status of the piping plovers both in Seabrook Beach and Hampton Beach. Because right now, I guess there's an extensive section in Hampton Beach that's being blocked off for the nesting of the piping plovers. And some of the residents were, not pleased with how much area of the beach has been closed off. But Brendan did a great job of explaining the population of the plovers and how it's going to go going for the future. So that's about it.
Jim, how many commercial cod fishermen do we have on in New Hampshire?
In the state of New Hampshire, at one time we had more than 50, now we're down to about a dozen.
Lakes Management Advisory Committee, Commissioner Price.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a family emergency I spoke to you about before this, and I was unable to attend the meeting. However, according to the minutes, there were no votes taken other than the minutes, and then there was a review of the cyanobacteria updates for the state, as well as a legislative roll-up of what had occurred in the legislative session.
Thank you. Natural Rivers Management Advisory Committee, Commissioner Hodgson.
So the advisory committee met just simply for the purpose of reviewing the legislative outcomes for the year, and their recommendations for legislation that we're following align with our position, so really nothing of note to report.
Okay, thank you. Search Committee, Commissioner Hodgson.
We have made some really great progress on the search committee. I've previously reported a large applicant pool that we narrowed down. We narrowed that down to 6 individuals that were invited for interviews. The remaining have all been communicated that they did not move forward in the process. After the interviews, we've narrowed that down to 2 candidates who will have a second interview. One candidate is internal to the state of New Hampshire, and the other candidate is an external from another state. So we will be conducting 2 additional interviews, and I feel pretty confident that we're making good progress, and we should be able to close on this. The goal would be by the next commission meeting. There's been a lot of meetings, a lot of interviews. The committee has been super engaged. The interview process went really, really well. Really great questions, really great engagement, so a big thank you to the committee for all the work on that. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, I think, and we're making good progress.
Anyone have any questions of Commissioner Hodgson? Nominating Committee, Commissioner Hodgson.
So with the chair's note that we were going to do this in July and not June, we'll have our feedback to you for that meeting.
Okay, that was my error. I looked in the policy manual and it says can't do it until July, so. Okay, old business. Anybody have any old business they'd like to bring up? Seeing none, how about new business?
I have a question.
Commissioner Taylor?
And this is random, and I guess I would start with the director or anyone else in the room that could speak to it. But can you tell us anything about this PD3 zoning discussion that has begun regarding what's going on with fishing game and unincorporated townships up north?
Sure, so this is a discussion, my understanding is that, well, I know for a fact, there are several new members of the planning board. So for those of you that aren't familiar, Coos County is rather unique. They have a county planning board to deal with planning issues in unincorporated towns. So this planning board only deals with the unincorporated places in Coos. Jim and Dan, how long, they have been, there's been a regulation on the books up there.
Since the 1990s.
Since the 1990s that dealt with these PD3 areas. New members of the planning board had gone to a meeting and they were concerned that those rules were not necessarily put together as well as they should be, so the discussion leaned towards just removing the rules. We had some folks that heard about it, at least one or two of our staff members went to the meeting, and from that, we've had a discussion with the planning board to modify the rules. I think that what they've done is they've set up some standards, so that PD3 land is PD3 land, so it's not just, they have standards to set, that set up what qualifies for PD3 land. The belief is that there's one of the major landowners up there that has a conservation easement on their property. That conservation easement would manage this process, so there's no point in double regulating, that particular landowner. Just so everybody understands, we're dealing basically with 5 landowners up there, maybe 6.
5.
Okay, well, it's 5 forestry, and then the 6th one is Autumn, correct?
Okay, 4 and.
Okay, 4 and Autumn. Okay, 5, sorry. So there's not a lot, even though we're talking thousands and thousands of acres, there's very few landowners that own this land up there. We've had a history of working with these folks for years. We would hate to see this program disappear. What the PD3, I believe, is protection on wild brook trout waters and also on specific areas for game, specific issues.
So combining PD3 and 4 in the critical fish and wildlife habitat areas.
Correct. So that would, some of the, does it include like the deer yards up there and stuff like that? Yeah. So it's protection of those critical habitats.
Yeah.
Now, the issue, part of the issue is that there's a new law in New Hampshire, the planning boards cannot regulate timber harvest. So this actually, first of all, the role we're going to be playing is not regulatory. What we're going to be asking for is a review, and then we'll make a statement on whether or not if we think the proposed cut is good or bad, but we're not going to say you can't cut. So it's, we're not going to regulate the cutting up there. Any authority will go through the regulation. If there is any regulation or denial of a cut permit, it would happen through the commission.
From the county commission, yeah.
County commission, not Fish and Game Commission.
Yeah, it's totally advisory. They don't have to take our recommendations, but it's basically doing what Will Stats and his predecessor, and now Jake DeBow, have been doing for 40+ years, is providing advice to landowners so they can make the best informed decision about how to manage their land. And again, once again, totally advisory, other than they have to reach out to Fish and Game to get that advice.
And to clarify, their zoning ordinances, not our administrative rules.
Right. So we're just testifying in front of the county planning board. Does that answer your question?
It does, but it begs a second question.
Okay.
That sort of thing kind of interests me. So how could any of us learn more about this or find out when the next meeting is or
So
meetings?
the next meeting is going to be tomorrow night up in Lancaster. You have to follow the Coos County Planning Board agenda. So they're publicly announced, and that's how you follow it. It's not a Fish and Game meeting, so it's not going to be on our website. It's not going to be us calling for the meeting. It's gonna be the Coas County Planning Board. So that, county has a webpage, you can look it up there. They also send out announcements. You can get on an email list and get all of their announcements to come out of the county planning board.
And a general question with respect to what's being discussed. You know, it's in this here, it's their proposal from Fish and Game to enhance restricted zones, be it along streams or ponds or steep slopes or high elevation or that sort of thing that's a part of this. I haven't made a study of
Just for that, yeah. So it's changing the PD3 4 zone ordinance, which is currently 400 feet along riparian zones. And that 400 feet has 3 different subzones, which different basal area restrictions and other things that can be kind of confusing. So we propose to change that 400 feet to just 300 feet from top of bank, and for second order streams and higher. So it is increasing the amount of area covered in those PD3 4 zones from like 7,500 to 8,500 acres, something like that. And there are some exceptions. We are leaving out those unincorporated places that already have easements, that already have special management areas designated, which require consultation with Fish and Game. As Scott said, why double regulate? It also takes out the Mohawk Stream, which is a very short stretch of stream between 2 impoundments, and so you got, it's warm water, not migratory and cold water fish water.
It's also highly developed.
It's also highly developed. The Route 26 corridor and Clearwater River, which is also already highly impacted and not important from a large migratory trout standpoint. There's one other section of the river that I forget. So we thought that these were reasonable exceptions because we're really focused on preparing corridor habitat for boreal species to improve connectivity among the east lands and the other deer yards that have special management area designation on them. Yeah, so these will provide those travel corridors between those other east areas and special management areas.
Oh, unless, and this is a comment, okay? And I think that based on conversations we've had, Jim, you would understand that when I heard about this, and then I received this, it caused me to catch my breath a little bit because we all know that in the North Country right now, there's a whole lot of people that are really concerned about this whole Connecticut Lakes process and, you know, basically a potential for it becoming a carbon farm. Okay, that's got the attention of a lot of users, okay, of that 146,000 acres. These other people, as the director mentioned, is only a handful of people, but they represent a huge chunk of land, okay? And yes, their management activity and whatever process they conduct on the ground affects, you know, fish, wildlife, and the habitats, but also the recreational opportunities that those landowners provide, a list of recreational opportunities. My thought was, we don't really want to do anything to tick those people off, okay? So,
in that light, we have scheduled a meeting with New Hampshire Timberland owners. We don't have a meeting date, but we've scheduled a meeting with New Hampshire Timberland owners. We have reached out directly to the manager of, I believe, the largest of the firms up there. Yeah. And I've opened communications with them, which, by the way, he chairs the Coas County Planning Board.
Yeah.
So, came is because we've been working with the planning board and not getting any negative feedback from the planning board, which, as I say, consisted of the manager of the largest forest up there. It came as a bit of a surprise when Jason gave me a call that there was issues. So we are doubling back and trying to make sure that we meet and discuss this with those folks and have, develop a dialogue so that hopefully we can come to an agreement. Process is still ongoing up there. We do not, as I say, we do not make the decision. It'll be the planning board that makes the decision. This next meeting tomorrow, I think they're gonna go over the plan. And then in July, they've invited the landowners to come into that meeting for their, and I don't remember the date off the top of my head. But the landowners will be invited to that meeting for the discussions.
I think it's the 17th, June 17th, pretty sure.
July.
July 17th, yeah.
Yeah, so that will come now.
Yeah.
But before that, we will sit down and meet with Tim.
Thank you.
Any other new business? Seeing none? Commissioners report. Commissioners will report on the recent activities as it relates to Fish and Game Commission duties and responsibilities. This is an informational item only. Any commissioner got a? Commissioner Pride? I was surprised your hand wasn't up fast.
Thank you. On June 5th, I attended a public hearing on a citizen's petition to the Department of Public Safety Marine Patrol Division regarding changing a 1993 petition that changed the rafting rule to within 75 feet of shoreline on Braun Bay. The rest, for those who aren't on Winnipesaukee, 150 is the default rafting rule on the rest of the lake. Braun Bay, if you've never been to it, is shallow. It has very little inlet-outlet water movement. It's a sandbar, it's become a party haven. There was actually a fatality related to this party a few years ago. We heard petitioners testify of human waste is routinely discharged, including baby diapers, found within Braun Bay, noise pollution from the partying, and the Kona Wildlife Management Unit is on Braun Bay, and sometimes has habitat conducive to loon nesting. Therefore, as the Carroll County Fish and Game Commissioner, I supported the petition to move to 150, return to the lake-wide 150-foot rafting rule, and I also supported as a resident of Mouldsboro. So that's what I did on June 5th. I also received notice from the Gander-Webster Boy Scout Council that they needed to reschedule that sporting clays event that I announced last month. That will now be on Friday, September 6th.
You signed the petition as an individual commissioner, not
Yes,
as
yes, I made it clear, as well as the resident.
Any other commissioner? Mr. Green?
I'm not sure if it fall under what, I mean, obviously I did, but, maybe one of this. Last week I spent a good part of the day following up on the poaching bill that the commission had me take care of, but I spent a good part of last week on a day with Colonel Jordan and Major Walsh. We've come up with basically a 80% guideline of what I'd like to go towards. I'll be submitting it to the commission hopefully next month as a bill. I want to wait and get some public input on the side of it and some more wording that we discussed today for marine resources and our freshwater resources. I'm hoping to put the thing together by next month.
I was invited by Jim Mailer to go out and look at the Lower Shaker Wildlife Management Area in Enfield. He gave me a tour. We took a hike through the woods. It was a perfect day. It's a huge, beautiful piece of land, 1,100 acres, forest, There's some remote fields that they mow for turkey, well, for habitat, but they do stock pheasants there as well. The access road that gets to those remote fields has been washed out, as he showed us pictures from other places. They had our new mini excavator there working, and they had some other heavy equipment that was borrowed from other departments, bulldozers and stuff, putting this new access road up. It's a long road with gravel. Several culverts had to be replaced along with a bridge. It's quite a project, and got a good first-hand look at how they got to scab together resources to make anything work on our budget. They had personnel and pieces of equipment that were on loan from Department of Environmental Services.
Well, our Facilities and Lands Division.
The Land Division.
The Facilities and Lands Division, which is a different division than the Wildlife Division and the Habitat Program.
Okay, all right. A lot of equipment there.
Yeah.
And it was it Kyle that we met?
Yeah.
Kyle was the operator. This was a road that they tried to get fixed several times, and they got just crazy numbers for repairs. So they were patching it together with some time with Kyle and some other donated time. It was coming together really well. It's just a perfect piece of land. We saw a bear in one of the cuts, and we saw a lot of snags that were left behind from some of the small, like 16-acre clear cuts.
Yeah.
We saw bluebirds and all kinds of, what was it, hermit thrush?
Hermit thrush, yeah.
I think it's hermit thrush. So it was a really, really nice 2-3 hours in the woods, and it's a beautiful piece of land over in Enfield. So thanks for inviting me. And it's nice to see. And Saturday, I participated in the SIG Sauer. We went down, Northeast Air Guns gave us a demo on some high caliber air rifles. I think we'll probably be seeing some legislation for have those used for big game hunting. So we got the insight.
Any other questions? Director's report.
Sorry. So, and we've had some brief discussions at other meetings, but our travel budget for the commission has steadily been growing this year. We had to go back to fiscal to ask for, to expand our budget line item this year for the commission. And we've run through that money, correct, Kathy?
Yes.
And you are now sweeping funds from other line items in our budget to pay
That
for
is
it.
correct.
So Kathy and I had a brief discussion this morning and some ideas, a couple of issues. I would suggest that maybe the governance committee meets and develops a policy for the commission. One thing that's a little tough is commissioners not getting their final expenses to the department after June 1st. Kathy has to have that all done, I think Friday, right, Kathy? So before the end of June, you have to have that all done. So it makes it very difficult. The other issue we come up with is we had one commissioner that presented us a expense account going all the way back to November. I would like to suggest that the commission take a look at developing a policy that only you have to submit your expenses at least quarterly, and anything older than that quarter would no longer be reimbursed. Another issue we may want to look at would be that travel to a non-commissioned meeting would have to be pre-approved by the chairman, so that it would not be an individual commissioner making the decision that they need to go someplace and see something at the expense of the department. It would have to rely on the chairman of the commission whether or not that commissioner should go. And these are just some ideas that I think might A, curtail some of our expenditures, B, would help us manage it a little better. And I think it would be up to the governance committee, would that be the right committee, to at least begin a discussion and decide whether or not if these are things the commission would like to take a look at. We are progressing with the hatchery project. HDR is at the point where they finished their 30% plan. We are in the process. We will be interviewing the 3 finalists for the contract manager position soon, and after which DPW will be sending the contract forward to the GNC, and at that point we'll be able to name then it becomes public and we can name the contract manager. We believe at this point that we will be meeting all of our deadlines put forth by Gopher funding, the requirements of the Gopher funding. And we do believe that we'll be able to come up with a plan that this project will be able to go forward. So, pretty excited about that. I would suggest that our resource committee, I got the wrong name.
What are you talking about?
Infrastructure committee, thank you. Our infrastructure committee, it would probably be time to sit down and have a meeting to talk about our plans, at least it's, some of the fixing projects that we would like to accomplish at some of the other hatcheries, because we're only at this point, to go for funding, we'll only be dealing with one of the hatcheries, so we still have 5 more. It's probably a good opportunity to sit down and have, it's probably time to have another meeting to discuss some of that. Friday, we swore in our newest conservation officer trainee. His name is Nate Superchi. Superchi, thank you. I'll never get the name right. Superchi. Nice young gentleman from Landaff. But he's starting a year-long probation period and training period, and we're pretty pleased. How many trainings do we have right now?
8 right now at the warden school, 8 of them.
8. So we have quite a few trainees. I know some of them are coming to the end of their trainee year this fairly shortly.
2 are, yeah.
So we're pretty excited about these new young COs that are coming on. One of the joys of being a director, you get to hear suspension appeals. So a hunter or an angler has lost their license and they come in and they ask for a shorter suspension period based off of circumstances of the case. And Colonel Jordan and I were in the room. I was hearing the appeal. Gentleman had shot 2 bucks in New Hampshire. The first buck he took in the North Country, and the second buck he was in M. He thought he was shooting a doe, and he accidentally shot the second buck. What kind of surprised us as we were going through the process, he also decided, in order to cover his tracks, he registered the buck that he shot in M in the state of Massachusetts online. So to our knowledge, this is the first interstate online registration of a illegally begotten game animal. Now, our COs, during the process, we hit him for shooting the second deer in New Hampshire, so he was charged in New Hampshire. We communicated with Massachusetts. That's my understanding. He was also charged in Massachusetts with falsifying state documents down there. The issue comes in the old days, when you actually had to take the animal to the check-in station, and you crossed state lines with an animal that hadn't been checked in. The federal government got involved, and that is a $10,000 fine. So pretty well, it either did one of 2 things. Most people aren't willing to do that, so it stopped the practice in its tracks. The second thing is that it certainly made a very good bargaining card to get people to pony up on what they had done, to go through a state process so it didn't get turned over to feds for prosecution. So this kind of hit us by surprise because, we get a new technology in place and you think you got everything all thought out, now all of a sudden we're having this interstate online registration of ill-begotten game and trying to prevent folks from doing it. So I raised a question with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and I raised a question with the AFWA. So hopefully U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service will be looking at it from their perspective, and the Northeast regional directors will be having discussions on it in the future to see. Obviously, this is probably a bigger problem where we are than what it might be in Wyoming, for example. If you're not on a border, you're only going to travel so far to try to accomplish this. But here in New England, you can travel, it doesn't take very long to get in. New Hampshire, basically, it doesn't take long to get to state border. So it makes it a crime that happens here all too often. That's my report, sir.
Anybody got a question for the director? Seeing none?
Can we have a copy of the commission budget and expenses? I haven't seen any transparency.
Yep.
Commissioner Green.
Don't have my question. On the budget, one of my questions is that How come we never get approached on the commission budget? We
Well,
have
actually,
a-
when you were chairman, I talked to you about it, but on the
Okay.
line item when we were developing the budget, and we had agreed to increase it. Kathy, do you remember?
We
what-
did
But we only increased it by 1,200 or 2,000? I can't
2,000.
remember. So Commissioner Stoll has already spoken to me about it in this budget cycle, and we've, you know,
In prior budgets, the line item for travel, for reimbursement for mileage, has always been $10,000. This current biennium, we increased it to $12,000 for each year. In this particular year, fiscal year '24, we went to fiscal committee and increased it by $3,000, so it's a $15,000 line item. I've used all of that up, and I had to transfer $4,000 from another accounting unit, because we can't go to fiscal committee, to pull into the commission's budget to be able to pay all of the travel
so
reimbursements.
you're just shy of 20,000 this year, actual expenditure with a $12,000 budget. So next year, you're gonna be back with a $12,000 budget. We'll see where the spending goes and have to adjust it. You know, your next director will have to go to fiscal to expand at some point probably.
Now, that being said, the expenses are considerably higher the last several months due to the extra mileage to come in for the hearings and the meals for the hearings as well. Just
So-
putting that out there.
Yeah, your budget is the hearings, I'm sorry, the mileage, meals, anything else in the commission budget?
Now, mileage, meal, we've had hotel this year for the first time, tolls, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I had a discussion with the director, and pretty sure the state government works the same as town government, county government budget. I asked, why don't we set the commission budget at $20,000? Why go 12, why go, if the money's not spent, it can be
It
line
reverts
item
back
for
to
another.
well, either it can be line moved over to be spent someplace else if needed, or it reverts back to the Fish and Game Fund.
Right. I mean, so why not set it at 20,000, leave it there, and then,
That would be my recommendation
Right.
through the budget process this summer. I already have that on my budget
Yeah.
too.
thank you very much, young lady.
She's
Any other questions of the director? Commissioner Hodge?
Volunteer hours can be used as match, correct? For certain funds?
For certain
For
things,
certain
yes.
funds.
Are commissioner hours tracked and are they eligible for match?
Randy's not here.
Commissioner hours are not tracked in
They
any
were not tracked, and we've never used them as match. I don't know if there's,
That's definitely a Randy question, but I don't believe they could be.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking about that, if, just in the budget conversation coming up, right?
we wouldn't use, we'd use it for federal match.
Yeah, it was just
Yeah.
the.
Yeah.
That would layer on a whole new administrative component. You would all have to do timesheets and account for that, and all of that would have to be tracked in a database that we have for in-kind match.
I would add too that the things that are matched for volunteer hours are specific to
That
the
program.
And so that you would be doing specific things that would
That would be
be
it.
the only
Yeah.
thing covered if you were volunteering for that. So it wouldn't just be, it's not a generic thing, it's very specific to the
Right.
program.
And I asked in the discussion about the mileage, right, because we're volunteers. And so, you know, we are very engaged and we're traveling around the state and we're doing various different things. So being reimbursed for our mileage, I think is very important because everything else is volunteer, rearranging personal work schedules and things like that to support that. I would be open to tracking hours if they were aligned with something that was trackable and added value, because I'm taking my personal time to support these programs and initiatives, and if there's added value in a match, I would be happy to track them if it's tied to
Yeah.
one of
Well,
those programs.
So like if you are a Hunter's Ed instructor, showing up at Hunter's Ed meeting, probably wouldn't qualify. So you know, it would have to be somebody doing, a commissioner doing something beyond a commission role that would be part of it. That's
Yeah,
my
and
understanding.
I just throw that out there for consideration, and fresh off of Jim's presentation, where match is so important, there's various different ways
Yep.
to get the match.
I will tell you that we maxed out our match, so
Okay.
unfortunately,
It's not gonna count anyway.
I will say that that's unfortunately not a category we're short on. So.
Okay.
Well, so the difference is PR, the excise tax on guns and ammunition continues to raise price. So our PR fund money has gone, as you saw on the chart,
Yeah.
right up straight. Our inland fisheries money is based off of excise tax on fishing equipment, that kind of stuff. That has not seen that kind of a raise. So in inland fisheries, we are, we run out of federal money before we run out of match. On the wildlife side, we run out of match before we run out of federal money. So we've had to become a lot more creative in what we do for match. So like Diane says, getting more match money for inland fisheries doesn't generate more federal money.
Agreed.
One of the things, if it's possible, what I'd like to request of the commission is, how about if monthly we get a report on the line item for commission expenses? Submitted to the commission.
Only if I can get commission expenses monthly.
What? I don't make deals.
Do any good.
And my reason is, I've been here 7 years and I've never seen that being done.
You can add it to your report? I mean,
Well, I'm not quite sure what you would like to see.
I want to try and keep you happy, Cassie, plus us. If we're having expense issues, I'd like to see a monthly, this is the cost of that commission fund for this month. To where, because I also agree that with our committee, if a commission is gonna go somewhere, I think it should go through the chairman. Not to put more work on the chairman, but he should know where his commissioners are and what they're doing. Because it could be something that he said, wait a minute, we got nothing to do with that, why,
Commissioner Green, I think you've been here for quite a while. And
Yes.
you've probably heard this same discussion every year in the month of June.
I've heard the same thing of getting the reports in on time.
And it's because people wait to submit their reimbursement until the
Yep.
last hour, and I don't know if we're going to be short on funds in the month of March,
Yeah.
because we have 3 months to go until the end of the fiscal year, and half of you don't submit your reimbursement request.
Kathy, I couldn't agree with you more. When I was chairman, remember I one day in a meeting said, if you don't get your reports in
You don't get
by
reimbursed.
this time, you're not gonna get paid. I got calls from the past chairman and the governor. I still have the neck wounds. Can't do that, all right? Our reports, to kind of throw it back to Fish and Game a little bit, our reports say get them in quarterly, put them monthly. I got no problem with doing them monthly. If I don't put in for a monthly, I should expect not to get my reimbursement.
You are one of 2 commissioners that put in for it monthly.
I try to keep it simple.
We're retired guys.
So, we could, as part of your report, you could put down, the 12,000, what are the budget amount is for the commission, 12,000, and what has been spent up to that amount.
What I can just do for them, Director, is the monthly expense report that I send out to
Yeah.
everybody. I can just send them the page for the commission.
Yep.
And they
That'll
can
work.
see in a cycle. That way it's no extra work for me, I'm doing it anyway.
Right.
Our internal expense report.
That'll work.
Okay.
And I would say on the monthly report, you know where it says quarterly? Do a little mind game, monthly. Just make it monthly.
I do an internal expense report for staff. So it wouldn't incur any extra effort on my part. I will just send you the page of the commission's accounting unit, if that works for you. You can see exactly what is spent on a monthly basis.
And the balance.
And the balance
I just feel
remaining.
the commission should know,
Where you are
instead of
budgeting.
coming in the end of June going, hey, we're almost out of money. We got no idea what's in
Well,
there.
I think this year we did come to you and tell you that I had to go to fiscal to expand.
We did,
Did
yeah.
I come here or did I just talk to the chair? I can't, I know I talked to somebody, I can't remember.
You actually made an announcement during the
I did
director's
hear,
report.
okay.
Commissioner Hodges?
Did I understand correctly, you're gonna be in the process of building the new budget?
Yeah.
Yes.
So should we not start with a zero-based approach and look and say, okay, I live in the Seacoast, I live in Stratham, I know I'm gonna come to Concord 12 times, I'm gonna go to Lancaster twice, I'm gonna, like, and there's a minimum, like, we don't need to be kind of pulling numbers out of the cloud. I mean, we could all create
So-
kind of educated budgets, roll that up, see where we
You
start.
can, but what, and Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, but basically the governor is gonna tell us 2% increase, 0% increase, 2% decrease on the total levy.
On the total
So if
budget.
I let you guys run, this is what I want, if it goes bigger, then I've gotta find another program at Fishing Game to cut.
To cut, yeah.
That means I say, all right, we're not gonna hire that law enforcement officer this year, because I gotta, and obviously.
But then we can have an educated discussion, right? And say, okay, Ray put together a forecast this big, Megan put together a forecast this big, Eric turned in no money, right? That doesn't make any sense, because Eric's gonna submit expenses. So at least we can kind of start. I hear what you're saying at the end, where the decisions making is gonna be. But if we can have a start to understand, say, this is realistic, or say, yes, you're gonna be limited on what we get approval for, but if we think we're gonna get approval at 15,000, and we all turn in budgets for 30,000, we have to have a conversation, say, guys, you can't start like the first quarter of the new fiscal year with going crazy, driving all over the place, because come months 9, 10, 11, you're not gonna get paid. So, it's just a recommendation that, it's numbers, right? It's a math exercise that we can kind of start with putting pen to paper and come up with a forecast by county on what the anticipated budget would be, see where that rolls up, and then say, okay, we're good to put in the 15,000, or holy cow, you guys are
And
crazy.
it's fine, but remember, this is a $20,000 item in a $24 million budget. The workload for staff, I mean, if you guys wanna work on it yourselves and put something together just to see whether or not 20,000 is enough, if you wanna support more, so be it, but I just don't wanna
No,
engage
that's fair, that's fair, yeah, no, that's fair.
I don't wanna overthink.
I don't want to overthink it, but as volunteers, I think it's important folks get reimbursed for their mileage.
You have to.
Yeah.
So, and nobody's not getting reimbursed.
Yeah.
What my suggestions are, is to try to make it so that the commission comes up with some rules, so that there is some control by the commission over the commission.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion? Now it's time to open up call to the public. Anybody wish to address the commission? If you do, please raise your hand, come up to the microphone and address the commission.
Hi, Christina Snyder, Chester, New Hampshire. And I'm up here to talk about an incident that was reported to Fish and Game law enforcement. There were videos uploaded to YouTube of two raccoon hound hunters. And in these videos, they shot the raccoons out of the tree, and the raccoons were still alive on the ground. And one fell in the water. And these raccoons were still alive, visibly still alive. And both of these raccoon hunters allowed their dogs to openly maul these raccoons. And one of the raccoon hunters said, "Get him, yeah, that's it, you go girl, get him, get him." as this raccoon was being shaken, it was flailing, and then the other one pulled the raccoon out of the water, so the raccoon was trying to swim after it was shot out of the tree. And I should say him or her, not it. And then the dog pulled the raccoon out of the water and then mauled it. And there was a complaint filed. And Fish and Game law enforcement went to these raccoon hunters, and the videos were taken down. And one of the gentlemen, and I use that term very loosely, put up another video because he was so angry at being talked to about this. And in that video, he shows the raccoon being shot out of the tree in succession. So it's like pow, pow, and it just goes back and pow, 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 pow. And this is what he said, and I don't swear, but he used a swear term, and I'll just use the beginning of the letter of the beginning of that word, and that is F. F you, aunties, enjoy the clip. And to anyone that pretends to stand for hunters but really caters to the aunties, F you too. I plan on killing every raccoon in season that I come across in the name of all the aunties, the colonel, and the little expletive CO, Conservation Officer, GP, which is the initials of the conservation officer that talked to them. Now I'm going to give you another a definition, and this is a hunter posting this definition. A hunter in camouflage in a tree stand in a hunting forum said this. There is a term called slob hunters, and there's slob trappers too. But slob hunters. A slob hunter is someone who callously kills wildlife for entertainment and ego gratification and revels in killing as many animals as the law allows or more. They tend to vote GOP and lack respect for nature in many other realms. So these were clearly, by him putting up there saying, I'm going to kill every raccoon I see, he's a slob hunter. You know what really upsets me? You got a verbal warning, the videos were taken down, and these people are free to continue. It just goes now unseen. Openly admitting to saying, I'm going to kill every raccoon I see, and we start raccoon season September 1st when the kids are still learning from their mother. You know, we get so upset when people kill two deer. You know, that's the end of the world because deer. But hey, hundreds of raccoons, whatever, it means nothing. Law enforcement didn't do enough. And what, you have a law enforcement Facebook page. You should talk about this. This should be talked about. This should go up there. You don't need to name names, but you should sit there and say, we have zero tolerance for this. And make examples. Instead I see, oh, we're having a baseball game or another rescue, and I appreciate the search and rescue, but that's all you seem to talk about. This stuff needs to get out there. This is so upsetting. I don't have any power to do anything, and now me being up here, I'm likely going to be a target by someone like this. You know, it happens all the time. And I shouldn't have to be up here doing anything. You know, there was at the Lancaster meeting, Commissioner Price, a few years ago, she got up there and she said that that people like me are relentless. We show up at meetings, we write letters, and the redcoats need to show up to support. You know, and Commissioner DeVoe read his letter last year. It got read into the meeting minutes. And it was basically calling people like me ignorant. And I'm tired of this. You have the power. This department has the power. The law enforcement has the power to make some kind of difference here. There should be limits on every species. No one should be allowed to go in and just slob hunt and wantonly kill animals just because they're out there. Please, I am begging you to do something. Speak up. Put this on your Facebook page. I don't get emails returned when I send emails to the Director Mason. I send emails to Public Affairs. I don't even get acknowledged anymore. This is not a private fishing game hunting club. You know, who's paying for the chairs you sit in? Who's paying for the electricity in this building? Who's paying for the uniforms you're wearing? Is it hunting licenses or is it
you know, because this is a government department and we all pitch in. Please do something, you know? These are living sentient beings. And just for them to be treated like this is just, it's obscene. And this is 2024, this isn't the 1800s anymore. Please, I am begging you, please make New Hampshire a state I can be proud to live in. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? Any other business to come before this meeting? If not, we are adjourned.